We do a lot of things on this show, but one thing that we want to do this week is let you fans know, just like you, our thoughts and prayers are with Sean Taylor and his family. We'll be back in a moment.
Born in 1983, Ben Winkler was one of the first Cabbage Patch Kids. But it wouldn't be long before this Cabbage Patch Kid became a Cabbage Patch adult. Like so many child stars before him, Ben was struggling. However, his bad fortune turned around when in 2003, it is believed he switched his car insurance to Geico, netting him much-needed money. Financially secure, he went on to win a celebrity dance competition.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Who knew that 8 pounds 4 ounces could take up so much space? You moved the computer into the laundry room and a new minivan into the garage. Maybe you need to expand about 600 square feet. Maybe you need more than just an expansion. Banking, insurance, investments, BB&T. There's opportunity here.
Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus Offensive Player of the Week has been made possible by BB&T. You can tell we want your business.
Welcome to the show, and as we said, the Washington Redskins lost a pretty tough game on Sunday, but compared to what has transpired this week, that game is meaningless, Donna.
Totally, Tony. Football has no meaning right now because of the support that we're praying for Sean Taylor and his family that he pulls through.
And you know, Tony, one thing about this city, it's a Redskin city. It's always been a Redskin city, and everybody has been affected by this. Everybody's praying for the family. Very admiring of Dan Snyder taking the plane and a cadre of Redskins and personnel down there to be with his family and to be there at that very difficult time, Tony.
Well, you know, our guest today will be able to tell us if this is the first time this has ever transpired in this, on this particular team. The guest is a young man that he is the author of the Redskins Encyclopedia, so he knows a lot about them. Matter of fact, he even has a picture of me, and that's real hard.
Yeah.
I'd like to welcome Mike Richman to the show. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You know, we're not going to belabor this thing, but has anything like this ever occurred on the Washington Redskins in the past history?
Well, in the mid-1950s, a number of tragedies happened off the field to the Redskins. A running back named Vic Janowitz, who had a great season in 1954, was seriously injured in a car accident after the '54 season. I believe it was a head injury, and so he was never played again, if I'm correct. And then there was a Redskins defensive back, real tough guy, who I believe was a bartender in the off-season, who was shot. And that was around 55, 56. So it was like back-to-back.
No, whenever it happened, it's never anything that you like to see. Speaking of not liking to see, tell me about when you're researching the history. And matter of fact, for all of you that's interested, this is the book. This is the encyclopedia. This man, how long did it take you to put this together and do your research? And how many individuals did you speak with?
Well, all told, it took about 8 years of research and writing.
Whoa.
I started on it around the beginning of the 1999 season, and I just stayed on it. And there were a lot of interviews. I spoke with probably about 150 players, coaches, and the interviews were key to being able to complete this book. And I prided myself on making the story of the Redskins very original.
Now, when you take a look at the history that you're discovering that you did not know, and you look at these teams, what is the big difference you see in today's Redskins and the Redskins that you're really researching?
Well, a major difference is in the personnel system. Like, take your era, for instance. There was so much stability with players. You saw the same players year after year. And it's much more difficult to maintain that in today's day and age with the existence of free agency, for instance. Players come and go. But there are teams in the league that are able to cope with that, such as the Patriots. They have stability on their roster, and they know how to use the free agency system, which players to acquire and when to let players go.
Now, you guys took a look at the game, and as we know, Jason Campbell had a great game, but he made some major mistakes at the end. And does that make you think back to the end of the old quarterbacks when we were watching it, you know, like Mark Richman? Remember, he had a few interceptions one time.
Fumbleitis for quite a while.
Yeah. Right. And those are things, Tony, are going to get corrected on down as Jason gets more familiar with things that he sees in the games and so forth. So as they say, those are some growing pains that we all must go through. It's hard to go through them, but because they had opportunities in the last 2 weeks down the stretch to win games, but interceptions ended up costing them, plus some other things. And
when you look at a lot of receivers, you're right, Donna, when you look a lot at the receivers this year, they've had trouble with some of the high balls, the high, hard balls. And all of a sudden, Randall L. goes out, and you have Rashae Caldwell in the game who hadn't played much, and all of a sudden you got a kid who can play well above his size and go up and grab that ball out of the air. Now you have a new weapon.
And you got to look at all the receivers that are stepping up right now, and they're really starting to play well. I like this. I like Keenan. I mean, McCardell, he's playing exceptionally well, and he's giving them that presence that they needed across the middle. Now, going against a Buffalo team this week, Mike, what do you think about this? Okay, you've made a lot of mistakes. You've lost a couple of good games that you should have won, but you still have opportunity for the playoffs.
Well, the Redskins...
And I'm talking offensively, because we don't even have to talk about the defense right now. I'm talking about offensively. What do you do?
The Redskins must come into that game with their heads on straight. They need to focus. They need to understand that this is a critical game. Sunday's game was critical in itself, but this is a game they've got to win. They must win the next 2 home games.
I think they got to win each and every game, but you're right. They got to go one game at a time. They can't afford to even look forward. They got to beat Buffalo. Then everybody after that are the individuals they need to beat. We have to take a break here, but Mike, if anyone wants to acquire this book, all of you need to know this one's mine. You'll never get it.
I thought it was mine.
I thought that was mine.
How can they acquire this book?
They can purchase it on my website, which is redskinshistorian.com, and it's available in many stores in the Washington area.
All right, well, we got some more questions for you, and we also have more show to do. As you notice in that segment, we talked about the offense, and that's why we did not talk about it much, because there haven't been much offense. But our defense, they've played well. We'll be back in a moment.
Toyota's industry-leading hybrid Synergy Drive technology balances the 3 benefits that everyone wants. Excellent fuel economy, ultra-low emissions, and quick acceleration. The all-new 07 Camry Hybrid is the perfect midsize car to fit any lifestyle. The 268-horsepower Highlander Hybrid handles your 4x4 SUV needs. And the award-winning Prius starts around $23,000. Toyota hybrids bring plenty of smiles per gallon. Toyota, moving forward.
Okay, what can we put in those vending machines? Go ahead.
Chips.
Chips? Excellent. Joel, have a seat. We're on a roll.
Potato chips?
Potato chips? Yes. Let's build off of potato chips.
Yeah. Crackers.
Crackers.
I'm getting hungry.
Yeah. Crackers with the cheese and the sticks.
I love that. Yeah, go ahead, Joel.
You had me flying for this.
You betcha. We need you.
Maybe we make business trips a little too affordable.
Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus Defensive Player of the Week has been made possible by Toyota. Get the feeling, Toyota.
Marcus Washington, it's good to see the young man back. He came in with 4 tackles and a sack, and really he's very important to this team, and his hamstrings have been bothering him, but when you get a full complement of these good linebackers that Washington has, they should be able to go in and control Buffalo's offense, especially with Buffalo starting a new quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really, Tony, I like what this defense is doing. And you know, last week we mentioned Marcus Washington's return and how he really provides a lot on that running game. And I think he drops into coverage well. And now you saw him Sunday, and he had some, he looked almost 100%. He really adds a lot to the linebacking
But
core.
Tony, the area that has really stepped up on the defensive side of the ball is the defensive line.
Okay,
because
that's all. I did not want to say a word. Finally, you can say something positive about my boys up front.
Because they finally have stepped it up. Because they're getting a lot more pressure, and maybe because of the linebacker play too. But it has to start up front because
you couldn't just give them 100%.
Well, I can't give them 100%. But they did have 3 sacks in the game on Sunday, but they still, with a new quarterback coming in, it's going to start up front with them putting a lot more pressure because they're starting to come on.
Can I ask about Wilson? I mean, this kid that they a lot of times bring in on 3rd down as a pass rushing specialist, I mean, he's strong, Tony. He looks good.
Yeah. Even better than strong, he's fast, and that's what they've been lacking at some time, to have 2 fast guys. Not saying exactly. These are the guys that put the pressure on the quarterback, make him step up to the tackles, and now you got 2 guys on the outside that can get upfield and push that quarterback up. But at the same time, you still have to get pressure from the middle, do you not?
Absolutely. Well, London Fletcher's really done a terrific job this season, one of the leading tacklers in the NFL. He was a tremendous free agency acquisition.
But the area, Tony, still
is the
no, but it is the passing game, because thank goodness they didn't have Garcia in that game for the entire game, because they were still getting too many passes right there in the middle, almost like those same passes they were getting in the Dallas game.
Yeah, but you know, yes, they did not have Garcia in, but you do not know it could have been the same way with Garcia in there. They've been playing pretty good defense. You got to look at this team. They did a little Sunday. They showed the games that the Washington Redskins have lost, and all you see in there is 3s and 8s and 7s and 6s. They've been playing good defense. They just need more points to be scored up by the offense.
And they talked about Sean Springs, and I think Greg Williams talked about how he'd wished almost that he had essentially put him one-on-one with the best receiver, because he's playing some of his best football. But they did that Sunday on Galloway, and it pretty much shut him down.
Sean Springs went to Ohio State with Galloway, and Sean Springs have been playing very well.
In terms of the points, I would have to say that Gibbs has been way too conservative this year, and it's been a problem, I think, since his return. So some of his calls, in terms of not going for it at certain times, settling for field goals when touchdowns seemed in sight, it just
you know,
can't explain things like
nobody's brought this up, but I don't have a problem with that call of going for it on 3rd down with a running play up the middle. What I have a problem with is not saying, okay, guys, Mike Sellers is out of the game, and Clinton Portis runs behind Mike Sellers. Now you got a guy in there who basically was shed to the side, and Portis was jammed. So why would you do that when you know Mike Sellers is out of the game? Why wouldn't you do something else, Tony?
I know you got someone in here hiding and told you that, because there's no way you could figure that out. I can't believe, Mike, that's a astute observation. Somebody, did Mike tell you that?
No,
is that right?
Well, I mean, you could see that Portis wasn't the same running back without Mike Sellers in the game.
But then, Mike, you could go almost to the special teams because of the fact they lose Randall L. at the start of the game, and then they don't have that solid return person back, because Cartwright has really given the Redskins great field position. But Tony, back to your defense, still they've got to come up with some points, some interceptions to help out an offense that can't score points.
And when we talk about offense, before we go out, I got an offensive question for you. But I want all of you fans to see that this is Mike's own shirt that he's wearing with Redskins on it. He is really a Redskins fan. We can't tell him what to wear, but you guys can find this at your local store. It's not with the book, though. When I'm looking at fantasy and I'm looking at different players, do you think something was served last week on this team when they let Betts do a lot of the running at the end of the game?
Well, the fact that Portis fumbled twice in the game certainly was a bad sign, and I would love to see Liddell Betts get more carries. He's on my fantasy team.
Ah, he's on the fantasy team.
And I have another question for you. Rock Cartwright, basically they had him on the squad 2 years ago as a fullback. Why wasn't he in at fullback in that game, Tony?
But he's very important, and he's not on anybody's fantasy team. Speaking of fantasy team, I know Dan LeBert has some interesting stuff this week.
Hey, Redskin Nation, Dan LeBert of FantasyTailgate.com here with another 30-second fantasy football tip of the week. The fantasy football season is nearing the playoff time. Players you want to target for your roster should come from the teams of the Cleveland Browns, the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Arizona Cardinals. All three of those teams have schedules that are very fantasy-friendly. For more free fantasy football information, just visit FantasyTailgate.com.
That's Rusty Wallace, amazing driver. He's also my third cousin once removed. That's his brother, Mike Wallace, driver of the Geico Chevrolet. I can see why Geico sponsors Mike. And when he does well, people will think about saving money on car insurance. Whereas if I were driving that car, all they could think about is, there goes Lauren Wallace, greatest thing that ever climbed into a race car. Poor fella, he has no idea.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Hey, Dad.
Hey, son. Learn anything new at school today?
Actually, I did, Dad. Like, did you know a lot of the diseases that men die from, like cancer and heart disease, are often preventable? I learned that just by going to the doctor once a year. Just might save your life.
Didn't know that.
Dad?
Yes, son.
Have you had a checkup this year?
Make an appointment with your health care provider or call the D.C. Department of Health today. Men's Health. It's not just about you. It's about family.
Smooth Jazz 105.9.
The home of the stress-free workday.
Listen at work.
The stress-free workday.
Only on Smooth Jazz 105.9.
Smooth Jazz 105.9.
The home of the stress-free workday.
Listen at work.
The stress-free workday.
Only on Smooth Jazz 105.9.
If you're injured in an accident, physical therapy can get you back into shape. But what about your finances? If you have a structured settlement or annuity, J.G. Wentworth can help you with cash to get back on track. J.G. Wentworth has helped tens of thousands of Americans to get cash for their settlements, to pay their bills, take care of medical expenses, or even to start a new business. It's your money. Use it when you need it. Call J.G. Wentworth today. Call 866-448-7208.
Relive the glory days of your Washington Redskins. Call 703-723-3388 to book a special speaker for your next special event. Speakers are available for sports and educational events, autograph sessions, or as motivational speakers. Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus Special Teams Player of the Week has been made possible by Geico.
Sean, a very good kicker. And I tell you what, we never mention special teams, but this young man is having a very good year, and they have a lot of confidence in him.
Definitely.
I think Tony, not only that, but Rock Cartwright in terms of returning kicks, but also the kick coverage has been amazing on special teams this year. Right. The Redskins have one of the best units in the NFL.
Yeah. Cartwright is having a fantastic season. Yeah. He's got one of the best return averages in the NFL now.
Worked for Hester in Chicago, he'd be the man, but he has about 4 or 5 more games if he can continue. Let's get to our Warpath question of the week, and it's very important, and I think it's one we all want to know. How can quarterback Jason Campbell eliminate the fumbles?
I think he needs to roll out a little more and hide the ball. Look back at Eddie LeBaron in the 1950s.
But isn't a lot of them happening on his blind side, and they late, and after maybe he's holding it too long, or maybe he's not feeling that blind side, or he's not feeling the pressure yet as a young quarterback?
Well, you know, the threat of running seems to have dissipated considerably in the last 2 losses. I mean, when you're down there and you're throwing the ball in the end zone, I mean, remember last week he could have run it in for a first down on the 5, and he didn't. I mean, it just seems like I mean, he's just not looking to run. And down there, I think you got to have that option.
He's leading the league, Mike, as quarterback running.
I know, but last week he could have got the first down.
But the thing about it is, too, is the pressure that's coming around. It's nothing you can do about people coming around the blind side.
Well, he'll have to figure it out because the next 5 games are the most important games of the season, and he can't afford to lose that ball. Let's look at the NFC East matchups for this week, and there's some pretty good ones. And what I like about this, each one of these games really helped the Redskins, so all they had to do is take care of business. You got Green Bay at Dallas. That's going to be a huge, huge. No, it's not. Green Bay is the worst 10-1 team I've ever seen.
They've got a good
I'm
defense.
being truthful. I can't even say that. They are not that good.
Well, you've got to go with Dallas that game.
Exactly.
It's in Dallas, and Brett Favre has never won down there, so.
And they do have a lot of injuries.
Okay, Seattle and Philadelphia, speaking of two more misfits. And I would look for hopefully Seattle to pull that out.
Well, they've got Seattle gets their running back, Sean. But I still think that Philadelphia's defense is pretty tough, and they're playing in Philly. I think Philly pulls that one out, Tony.
New York Giants at Chicago, Mike. I know you guys don't think that Hester's going to run two backs, so the Giants, unfortunately, will win.
You should see my call there. You should see the headlines in New York. Oh my gosh, Eli, the last coming of Eli. I'm telling you, it is not good in New York, Tony. The Giants do not win this.
All right, Buffalo, Washington, we all know. We'd say Washington, one at a time, win the game. Speaking of one at a time, Mike, it's a rumor out that the Sports Bar Challenge is over.
Oh, Tony, it's never over until it's over, but
I'm
it's
glad
probably
to hear
over
that,
before
Mike.
it's over. But let's take a quick look and let's see if anybody's 11-1 by now. All right, New England at Baltimore. You know what? Let's play some smash-mouth football and knock off New England this week. What do you say? Crystal City Sports Pub, Baltimore Ravens, 7-5. Go Ravens. Kirkpatrick's New England Patriots, 8-4. Martini's New England Patriots, 7-5. Crystal City Restaurant, New England Patriots, 7-5. Greavy's New England Patriots, 7-5. And Cheeseburger, New England Patriots. There's only two teams, Tony, that could knock off the Patriots. Baltimore's one and Pittsburgh's the other. Maybe it's this week.
You mean Miami's not one?
I don't think so.
Baltimore is not.
Well, they could. And this is the kind of team that Baltimore, if they get the right thing going defensively, that they can. Now this team, everyone see right now that New England, they do really have some weak areas, and I think they can beat them.
It is not going to happen, Tony. They have no offense.
I
think the Eagles showed that they can be beaten.
Exactly.
The Eagles gave them a scare.
See, Mike, what you have to realize is with you on the show now, there's only two of us up here that know anything about football. These two, they're guessing. Now, they always
How many years?
guessing.
You have 75 years each, right?
I think they know something.
You know 75 years worth of information, right?
All joking aside, right? All joking aside, right? You see, that's why I brought my man on here. But all joking aside, you look at the teams this year, and I still think that there's a couple of losses out there for that New England team. And they may want those because they do not want to go into the playoffs undefeated and not tested.
I think Belichick wants an undefeated season in light of the controversy that happened around the beginning of this year with the spine. He wants to put it to the league front office.
But I'd rather lose now than in the playoffs because it's one and done.
If they go into those playoffs undefeated, they will lose the first round.
I tell you, there's something going on there because he pulled remember the interview at the end of the game, and he pulled the player off the field to come in the locker room and didn't want him to give an interview to NBC?
I tell you, we'll see. Speaking of we'll see, if I look at my clock correctly, it's almost December. So that means there's only 31 days left for you seniors. The scholarships are out there. I think a couple of them are gone already, so you better get involved now.
Tony is proud to announce the 5th year of the Redskins Magazine Minority Scholarship Program, which is funded this year by Geico Insurance. The subject of the scholarship essay is a meaningful high school experience or teacher. College-bound students are urged to submit their entry before the deadline date of December 31st, 2007. There will be 5 $1,000 scholarships awarded. For more information, visit the website at redmagplus.com and click on Youth Sideline. Another valuable resource for information regarding this scholarship can be found in the District of Columbia Awards and Scholarships Handbook, which outlines application procedures. Look up Redskins Magazine Minority Scholarship in the table of contents. Again, the deadline is December 31st, 2007. Good luck!
Okay, I'm rolling.
Third down. Remove the chains or give up the ball. The Ravens D stopped teams from converting 7 out of 10 times.
This ain't no party. This ain't no disco. This ain't no fooling around.
Ravens Extra, the maximum Ravens postgame show after every Ravens game. Masson means maximum Ravens. Be there.
George Mason averaged 21 wins over the past 4 seasons.
East Carolina, 4 of 5 top scorers returning.
Mason, all 5 starters returning.
ECU, new coach, new attitude.
Dre Smith, 14 threes in the CAA tourney.
John Fields, first freshman to lead the conference in field goal percentage.
Just remember 2006, Final Four.
It's time to stop bragging. It's time to start playing. George Mason versus East Carolina. Just one game in the BB&T Classic Sunday at 2:30 p.m. on Masson. Be there.
Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus Stat of the Week has been made possible by the D.C. Department of Health.
Ten and 6, that means they have to win out, but 10 and 6 will get them into the playoffs. And if we take a look at the hot games of the week, you can see why, as we said. Just think, first of all, Green Bay and Dallas. We know both of those teams will make the playoffs. They both are pretty good teams. As I said, Dallas is a 10-1 team. I don't think Green Bay is. So you take a look at that, that's a hot game. But then San Diego, Kansas City on the other side of the ledger. That's some teams that's sort of like the Washington Redskins. They need to win those games, but they're not very good teams right now.
Yeah, don't count Kansas City out when they play San Diego, because that game could go either way.
The one that's big for the Washington Redskins is Tampa Bay at New Orleans.
I think Tampa Bay goes down, Tony.
You do?
Yeah, because Garcia's back. I mean, he was really struggling at the end of that game. His back is really hurting him. And, you know, New Orleans has got the kind of offense that can get the ball in the end zone. So I think it's a convincing win by New Orleans at home.
Now, since you're thinking and doing what you thought your thought process should be, let's look at the picks of the week, Mike. Okay. From what I understand, some people lost ground this week. Cleveland at Arizona, Jacksonville at Indianapolis, Detroit at Minnesota, Seattle at Philadelphia, New York Giants at Chicago. Fans, if you do not hear them talking, yes, I gained on them. If you take a look right there. Now, you're taking the Browns down to the Colts, the Vikings, the Eagles, the Giants. You and Mike are both, except for Mike, is going to take the Seahawks and the Bears at the bottom.
With Russ Graham.
All right, I'm taking the Browns, the Jaguars, the Vikings, the Seahawks, and the Giants. So there will be some changes. And Mike, you're taking the Browns, Colts, Vikings, Eagles, and the Bears.
I have to go with the Bears in that game. I think the Giants are experiencing their annual late-season slump.
Only way the Bears will win if Hester scores 2 again, and he's not going to do that. And my tip of the week for the Washington Redskins, we need to hit this right away, is 1 game, 1 week, 1 team.
Absolutely. They've got to just go in and take care of business this week. Their destiny is still in their own hands. If they win at least 4 out of the last 5 games and finish 9-7, I think they got a shot.
Mike, we got a little time for some good idea, bad idea.
Tony, 2 of the hottest stories, I think, in the NFL right now. A lot of people aren't talking about it, but in Philly, they've pretty much gotten Donovan McNabb out of town.
I don't believe in that.
But if there are only a few games left, you don't want to get him hurt, because then you got $8 million against the salary cap next year. Do you play Feely and Kolb? Find out what you got in Kolb. Good idea, bad idea?
Bad idea, Mike.
All right, good idea for the Redskins, because I tell you what, Donovan showed when he played against the Redskins that he can still play. Exactly. So, you know what, they one game, that guy may have had a good game, but at the same time, Donovan is a better quarterback.
Here is going to be the biggest story in the postseason. The Cowboys don't want their offensive prodigy, Jason Garrett, to go. In a bold move, rather than lose him, the Cowboys showed Wade Phillips the door and looked to the future with Garrett.
Are you
heard it here. Good idea or bad idea?
Bad idea. Bad idea.
You heard it here. Okay. Save this tape.
Wade Phillips has played.
All right. It's time for Ozzie Newsome to tell Brian Billick to change his offensive system, or he goes. Good idea or bad idea?
I don't know if he need to change the whole system, but he may need to change some personnel. So that's an in-between idea. Speaking of changing personnel, if you notice, Mike's his picks were pitiful.
They were this
He
week.
thought he was going against some elementary children.
Yeah.
They were terrible. Next week, come back so you can laugh with us. You have a great evening.